Once, when I was 12 years old, I was invited to a sleepover because my cousin Tisok had a friend who went to live with his aunt and had a really cool big house. And in the afternoon, everyone was playing PlayStation. But Efraín, Tisok's friend, wasn't in the living room with us, so I went to look for him all over the house. But then, I walked into a room and saw that Efraín was smelling his aunt's underwear. Sniff, sniff. So I said to him, "What the fuck, man? What are you doing?" And he said, "Just here, enjoying the smell." But I was just shocked and stayed silent. And then Efraín says, "Actually, if they got a little cinnamon streak, even better." And at that moment, I regretted going to look for him and missed my life from 5 minutes ago. One time when I was 13 years old, my brother and I scared the lady because my brother, the clown chicharrin, had to go poop. When it was time to clean him up, I told my little brother to put Nutella on his finger to scare the lady and then suck it off when she came into the bathroom. When the lady came to clean him, you heard her scream, "Oh, Heavenly Father and Virgin Mary!" She thought he was eating his own homemade tamarind candy. And I told the lady, calm down, it's Nutella." But the lady got scared and never took care of us again. One time when I was 13 years old, I was in the car with Panzas and Sardina because we were going to the mall, and while we were on the way, it started to rain. But then Panzas says, "Look at the raindrops falling on the window," and I got the idea to raise the drops. So I named my drop Snail, Panza named his Turbo, and Sardina named his Lightning. But when the race started, Snail was winning. But then a really strong wind came and took it away, and Sardina made fun of me, and I got mad and started kicking. But I had Toco's shoes, and then my shoe goes flying and I hit Panzas on the head and he starts crying. One time, when I was 10 years old, I went to a restaurant because I was with my friend Huesos. And when we went to the restaurant's play area, I was stepping on the fingers of the kids who were climbing up, just to mess with them. And my friend saw me and said, "You're crazy, Parker!" And then, one kid whose whole hand I stepped on started crying. He went to his mom to tell on me. But I told my friend, "Poor silly kid, he won't tell on anyone because he doesn't know it was me." But then the kid's mom came to the play area, and I just pretended to be clueless so they wouldn't catch me and scold me. But in the end, they didn't find out, and I kept stepping on kids' fingers. Once, when I was 6 years old, I was invited to the movies because my older brother, Mochon, and his girlfriend told me to go with them. And when the movie ended, we went to the taxi stand. But at one point, they were making me laugh, and I started farting right there in front of everyone. And there was a lady nearby who was listening to my orchestra of farts. Then, my brother noticed out of the corner of his eye that the ladies were looking at us weird, but Mochon and his girlfriend were just laughing. And when we got home, they told my mom the whole story. They never took me to the movies again because I was so gassy. One time when I was 13 years old, we were at a hotel because it was my aunt vacuum cleaner's wedding. But then, when the party was over and we were going to the room, we ran into my uncle Pete, and he said, "Hey, they say this hotel is haunted, but sleep well." And when we got to the room, I was already scared to death, so I slept next to my dad in bed thinking I feel safer that way. In the middle of the night, I thought a pig had entered the room because I heard this noise. And I said to my dad, Dad, I think a pig got in." But my dad, half asleep, said, "It's not a pig, that's my snoring, that's how I snore." That night, thanks to my dad chicharron, I couldn't sleep. Once, when my aunt Chencha was 3, she visited her grandmother's house for her grandpa Goose's party. When she arrived, she hid behind the furniture. But then, her grandfather says, "Look at the girl, she went behind the couch." And Aunt Gabby goes to see what Chencha was doing and sees that she was chewing something. So she takes it out of her mouth and it was a little cockroach egg. And then Aunt Gabby runs out in disgust, screaming that she was eating eggs. But then, a few years later, they asked my aunt if she remembered eating little eggs. And she said yes, that she did it because they were salty and crunchy. One time, when my dog Mickey was 4 years old, I tricked him because that guy didn't want to eat his kibble. When I fed him, ants or birds always ate his food. Once, tired, I said, "If you don't eat, I'll give you away to a Chinese person." I decided to go to the kitchen and act like I was making something tasty for him, letting Mickey watch. I grabbed his kibble bowl and walked around the kitchen like a fool. And I said to Mickey, "Alright, big pup, this is tasty." And he started eating the kibble when before he would never eat it. But wait, well, it only worked for me 3 times. And now Mickey only eats chicken.
I'm really picky and well, I pretty much only eat chicken.
One time, when I was 14 years old, I was invited to my grandma's house because my cousin Tisok had a sleepover just for cousins. And when it was movie time, we all went to get snacks. But then, my other cousin, Sardina, says, "Look, there are cookies in the cabinet!" And I ran to grab the metal tin to eat the cookies all by myself. But when I look inside, there weren't any cookies, just needles, pins and threads that my grandma had kept there. Then I see that everyone starts making fun of me because they weren't cookies. So I grab a pin and start poking everyone who laughed at me in the butt. But well, my grandma scolded me and they tattled to my parents. Once, when I was 14 years old, my mom invited her friend Choricito to our house because they were going to talk about how the lady was getting divorced. But when I went downstairs to get some food, my mom saw me and said, "Come say hi, son." And I thought, no way, she just wants to make me serve them all night. So I started walking slowly so they wouldn't hear me. But she still heard me and said, "If you don't come here right now, I'll break your Xbox." So I just ran over to where she was and said, Hi, best wishes everyone." But then my mom told me to go get some snacks from the kitchen. So basically she made me be the waiter until 1:20 in the morning. Well, goodbye, master. Once, when I was 14 years old, my friend Chicharroncito invited me to his house because it was his party. And when it was time to cut the cake, we all started shouting, "Bite! Bite! Bite! Bite!" But then Chicharron's dad said, "Here's your bite," and let loose his Doberman that was in the backyard. I spot the doll approaching the cake and asked kids, so I grabbed the cake, threw it at the doll and ran to lock myself in the bathroom. By chance, I saw my friend Chicharroncito's underwear on the floor with a skid mark on it. I ended up calling my dad to pick me up and they charged him for the cake. One time, when my little brother was 6 years old, we went to a hotel because we were on vacation with my cousins, Tisok and El Sardina. And when we were at the pool, we started diving in. But then my brother says, "Milen, there's a grasshopper in the water." And we just left the grasshopper there. But after we got out of the pool, I noticed the same grasshopper on a pantry since it had escaped. Then the grasshopper jumped and landed on my brother's foot. To get it off, my little brother spun around like a whirlwind. Just then, a waiter passed by with beers and glasses. They collided and everything spilled on both of them. So Tisok, El Sardina and I ran away laughing our heads off and left my brother there. Chequetete, the video is over, but don't worry, I've left you 2 great videos here. One is about when my best friend betrayed me with his girlfriend Melissa when I needed him most. And this one is about when I thought the chupacabra had appeared in my room. Both are really good, choose one of the two. Go get some popcorn and keep enjoying yourself. Bye bye, thanks for watching this video.